Tell me if you've heard this one before. Some of the other ones nobody's ever heard of before. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the roof there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of a new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his courses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all, as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly. When they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry, his droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings and turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Welcome, everyone, to Covenants and Kingdoms. I am your co-host, Brad, along with...
Hi, I'm Nathan. Baba Noel.
Mr. Santa Claus himself is here.
No, it's Baba Noel.
Oh, sorry, Baba Noel. Thank you guys for joining us. Another Christmas special episode here today. But before we get into that, as always, we're brought to you by Baba Java Coffee. We are a specialty roaster located here in Birmingham, Alabama, with 3 cafes in the area. If you're looking for great gifts, coffee is a great one for the Christmas time. So
yeah, it's the best one.
Yeah, exactly. And right now you can save 10% on all your orders. If you're a listener to this podcast, just put in the keyword covenants at checkout and you can save 10% on all your orders. So,
and if you order 100 pounds or more of coffee, Baba Noel or one of his elves
will deliver it.
They're not really elves. What would they be?
UPS drivers.
Well,
those are his elves right now.
Baba Noel's helpers, one of them, in a Baba Noel shirt, will deliver the coffee straight to you, straight away.
But yeah, go check it out. We've got a lot of great coffees for you to check out. Winter Wonder Blend is back, which is always
so good. That's what I drink every morning.
A seasonal favorite. So
every morning.
Go check it out. All right, so today we're going to answer definitively, Nathan, one important question about Christmas. Is Christmas pagan?
You will have an answer today. Is Christmas pagan? Yes or no? Well, let's talk about that at the end.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So
it could be either one, and we'll talk about which one it is.
Well, it is a loaded question, and it's been debated for millennia and still is, even to this day. So we're going to talk about that and get into aspects of Christmas traditions and where they started and how we can view them.
So from some Christmas commentators, some Christian commentators are adamant that that Christmas is not pagan. And though there's blog posts, I looked for books about it and I couldn't find any, but there's articles, there's YouTube blog videos, posts, there's videos, there's all kind of stuff where we're arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
Most of the people that aren't Christian want Christmas to be pagan, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
They have an agenda. And a lot of Christian commentators that are very conservative really want it to not be pagan. Okay, so we have bias in either direction. Okay, So as we're talking through some of these things today, just keep in mind there are biases in both sides. Okay.
Well, I'm going to give you a little. So I grew up, but early in my Christian life, we were a part of a King James only super fundamental church, and that pastor was adamant that everything about Christmas was pagan and when we shouldn't celebrate it.
It's like a Puritan. That's what Puritans would say.
Exactly. And so we didn't. For like 2 years, we got like 1 or 2 gifts. Which the gifts part is fine, but we would go to families' houses and we wouldn't. It was very strange.
There was no tree.
Awkward.
There was no
we didn't do
nothing.
It was weird.
All right. Yeah. They believe Jeremiah that it's worshiping Esther.
Yeah. So anyway.
Okay. Let's talk about it. So we're going to give 2 Christian perspectives, and then we're going to give more of a secular perspective, and we'll decide if it's pagan or not definitively today.
We will take a vote. So we're deciding, us 4 here in this room.
Yes, we'll take a vote.
We will make the decision.
Has to be 3/4 majority.
Right. That's right.
Okay. So Wes Huff is a very influential Christian commentator, pastor, theologian, definitely a theologian, scholar, kind of. Yeah. But he is a really good guy. I agree with almost everything he says. He really loves the Lord and wants to teach people the truths of the Bible. And I really enjoy his perspective on a lot of things.
His work in ancient languages is amazing. I like it. So anyway.
No comment. It's not he does a good job of presenting it to the masses.
Yeah.
But he's not always right.
Gotcha.
From a scholarly perspective. So anyway, but he's a really great guy, and I appreciate him. And thankfully, people like that are brothers of ours. So so this is a blog post and a video based on what Wes Huff was talking about. He definitively says it's not pagan.
Gotcha.
Okay, which let's talk about some of these things. So. The Christians, the narrative went, moved the celebration of Christ's birth to the place of those other pagan festivities in order to make it easier for converts and or to encourage pagans to convert to Christianity. In many ways, this makes sense. Why not redeem and cover up the former pagan festivals with a Christian celebration? Christen and baptize those already celebrated days with a new meaning that moved new and inquiring Christians away from the darkness of their heathen worship and fill it with light. Okay. Many people have believed that. That's what Christians did. They converted these pagan festivals and just plastered them over with Christian words and things and made them Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. So where does the pagan Christmas idea come from? Okay. So if you try to get to the origin of these accusations, you would find that the beginnings prove it's more modern than ancient. Okay. So this is all from Wes Huff's perspective. A lot of blame falls on the Free Church of Scotland minister and certain concerns expressed by the Puritans of the 16th and 17th centuries. The Puritans were well-intentioned and very pious. However, in their zeal to pursue truth, they didn't always get things right. The rowdy and undisciplined celebrations that accompanied Christmas concerned the Puritans greatly. But where their motivation might have been well-intentioned, their solution to this perceived problem turned out to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is what Wes Huff says.
Yeah.
So there was a Scottish minister named Alexander Hislop in the late 19th century. He wrote a pamphlet in 1853 entitled The Two Babylons, which was eventually expanded into a book, the same name. In his book, he argued that Roman Catholicism found its beginning as a Babylonian mystery cult, established during Constantine's rule in the 4th century. Hislop argued that traditions like Christmas trees found their way into the modern world from Europe, but that Europeans had adopted them from Roman paganism, who in turn had adopted them from the Babylonians. Hislop's work had a conspicuous lack of citations, and he didn't provide any sources. Nonetheless, many of the detractions concerning modern Christmas celebrations and traditions can be traced to those two sources: Puritan skepticism or Hislopian condemnation. So Hislop's books were not scholarly, according to most. They were just like a modern podcast where you can just say whatever you want to. Right?
Yeah.
The earliest mention of customs like Christmas trees are ascribed to Martin Luther. The story goes that during a winter stroll, Luther was overcome by the brilliance of the stars in the night sky, painting the background over the evergreen forest. In order to capture that moment, Luther cut down and erected a tree in the main hall of their house, covering its branches with lighted candles. Thankfully, it didn't catch fire and burn things down.
I've always thought it was strange that they would put candles on dead trees in your house. I mean, how many?
Did you see Christmas Vacation?
Yeah, right.
That's what happens.
I know.
All right? And that was electric lights.
I know. Just be careful.
Thankfully, we don't have lighted candles, and most people use artificial trees that are made of plastic, so they don't really burn. They just melt.
Yeah. Thankfully, I've never had that happen.
Santa, wreaths, mistletoe, and many other Christmas traditions may not necessarily have much to do with ancient Christian celebration, but they also don't have anything to do with overt paganism. We'll see if that's true. I don't doubt that the Reformed Puritans and Hislop himself were well-intentioned in their desire to weed out paganism from Christian belief and practice. Okay. However, their understanding of many of the traditions they endeavored to critique were often shallow, misguided, or fabricated wholesale. In Hislop's case, it may be, or it's just, rumors he heard.
Yeah.
Things he read somewhere.
Because again, he didn't really research anything.
Right? Well, he might have researched it, but he didn't really provide good sources.
Exactly.
And again, scholarship was a lot different back then too. So we can't, again, we can't judge people back in ancient days where they didn't have all the resources we have by the scholarship we do today.
Yeah.
So, critiquing him that much, it's okay to be have skepticism about what he's talking about. But we can't critique him that much because he didn't have all the resources we do,
Right.
I mean, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have libraries like we do. They had to go to play. Did you see Lord of the Rings where Gandalf had to go through all the scrolls and try to find all the things about the Ring of Power? It's like, that's what it was like. You had to go and find the place with the right thing, research it, find it, write it down yourself so you can remember what it says. Yeah. It's just a lot harder. All right. Yeah. Well, Hislop was a little later, so it was not quite as bad. But anyway. However, if you actually study what really took place within early Christianity, that portrayal couldn't be any further from the truth. To be sure, Christianity did stand its ground against paganism and heretical factions, but their portrayal as a proverbial religious bully on the playground is complete fiction. That's according to Huff.
So he's saying he doesn't agree with that side that says Christians just adopted all these pagan rituals.
Huff does not know.
Basically covered them with Christianese, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
He says, no, it's not.
That's not what happened.
So let's talk. So Wes talks about the historical record. The reality is that modern Christmas traditions are far less sensational and nefarious than all that, and the date was not stolen from neighboring pagans. It is true that many other pagan festivals did happen around the winter solstice, but correlation does not equal causation, and when it comes to paganism and Christmas, the evidence for causation is very weak. Okay. There were other festivals taking place. Okay, we're going to talk about the Festival of Sol Invictus. We're going to talk about winter solstice. We're going to talk about Saturnalia. We're going to talk about some of these Roman pagan festivals. And but Wes argues that the Christians' choice for choosing December 25th as the date to celebrate was not because some of these festivals took place. Okay. The origin of December 25th as a date for Christmas finds its beginnings in the late 2nd and early 3rd century with the historian Sextus Julius Africanus. Africanus wrote Chronographiae, an early treatise that attempted to chronologically cover world history from creation to his own day. Based on calculations from his reading of Luke and Matthew's Gospels, Africanus concluded that Jesus was conceived on March 25th. Where he came up with that, I don't know. Nobody knows. No one knows. For the birth, then, he counted 9 months ahead, which landed him on the date of December 25th. Okay? Africanus wasn't alone on his dating of Jesus' birth. A contemporary of Africanus, Hippolytus of Rome, wrote a commentary on the book of Daniel in the early 3rd century, in which he also states that Jesus was born on December 25th. Now, did they share ideas?
I don't know.
Because I don't know where they come up with this. Because,
where does March 25th come from?
I don't know. I didn't read it, so I don't know.
Yeah. Because there's no... we actually, if you watched our last episode, we talked about... we can come up with a date for Jesus' birth.
Right.
From the book of Revelation. Anyway, that's interesting because there's nowhere else. I don't know where they get that date from.
No, and we'll talk about that later.
Anyway.
We're going to talk about some of these things. Okay. So Sol Invictus, the festival commemorating the Roman sun god, okay, fell on December 25th. However, the earliest inscriptions concerning the festival place it at the beginning of December and not at the end. That's debatable. Okay. In his work, The Origins of the Liturgical Year, Thomas Talley argues that it is more likely that the Roman Emperor Aurelian moved Sol Invictus to December 25th to compete with the growing rate of Christianity. Not everyone agrees with that. Okay. Talley makes the interesting observation that by the 3rd and 4th centuries, Christianity was on the clear rise, and adherents to traditional Roman paganism were in a free fall. The trajectory of this shift in religious practice actually started a century earlier with the Roman magistrate Pliny the Younger. Pliny noted that the Roman temples were being left empty due to so many Roman citizens becoming converts to Christianity. Julian, who was a Roman emperor for 3 years in the 4th century, writes about his frustration with the lack of Roman religious devotion to idols and blames the Christians for this pagan crisis of faith. All this leaves us with a quandary. Is it more likely that within the 3rd and 4th centuries, the growing number of Christians copied the pagans whose adherents were on a decline? Or did the desperate pagans, with the temples empty, copy the Christians whose faith and practice was growing in popularity? Based on all the evidence, more and more ancient historians are pointing to the latter conclusion being the reality. That's according to Huff.
Yeah.
Apart from Sol Invictus, which appears to have been taken place on December 25th, and Huff says after the Christians had already acknowledged that as the date of Jesus' birth, and I don't know that everybody doesn't agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. None of the other ancient pagan feasts and festivals fall on that date. Around it, to be sure, but not on it, Saturnalia, for example, was celebrated 14 days before January. So the Roman calendar had 2 more days in their month, so that places Saturnalia on December 17th. Okay. The Brumalia and Bacchus feasts were likewise celebrated earlier in the season, in late November. Seeing as all these would fall before the date of December 25th, then if they were an attempt to copy and replace pagan festivals, they would have been doing a poor job of it. The pagans could have just as easily celebrated their traditional pagan holidays in the days and month leading to December 25th and simply tack Christmas on the end. Not a replacement, but an addition, according to Huff. Okay? In reality, the Christians have been recognizing and celebrating the incarnation and Jesus' birth for decades before we start to see firm designations for other pagan celebrations on December 25th. In 386, John Chrysostom says that Christmas was being celebrated on December 25th and describes it as a long-time tradition. In the Fulicalian calendar, a document produced in 354, has Christmas listed as a holiday on December 25th. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, nowhere in Scripture does it tell us Jesus' birth, except for Revelation 12. However, just because the Bible never commands us to celebrate it does not mean that we shouldn't. Jesus himself traveled to Jerusalem, as recorded in John 10, to celebrate the Feast of Dedication, better known today as Hanukkah. Right?
It's from Maccabees, right?
Yes. This celebration came from the 2nd century BC, commemorating the recovery of Jerusalem and subsequent dedication of the Second Temple at the beginning of the Maccabean Revolt.
Yep.
Hanukkah is not a celebration that the Bible says for God's people to participate in. It comes from the intertestamental period, Second Temple period, the time between the last book in the first book of the Old Testament and the first book of the New Testament. Jesus has no problem traveling to Jerusalem to celebrate this feast of dedication, which is, not part of Hebrew tradition necessarily.
Yeah.
Despite it not being commanded in Scripture, it is fully consistent with Scripture. Why wouldn't you make a celebration out of an event that represented God's work in the world and the preservation and redemption of his people? In a very similar way, why wouldn't we celebrate the incarnation and the birth of Christ? I have no problem with what he says there.
Of course.
No problem at all. I agree with that 100%. Secondly, the incarnation and birth of Christ is, along with Jesus' death and resurrection, the most awesome event in all of human history. Why wouldn't we want to carve out some specific time to celebrate such an amazing event? Why wouldn't we purposefully set aside a time of the year like Advent to build up the exception of our coming Savior?
Amen.
Finally, why don't we take a cue from Paul when he writes to the church in Corinth concerning those who are worried about eating meat sacrificed to idols? Okay, so this is about paganism directly, right?
Yep. Therefore, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that an idol has no real existence and that there is no God but one. For although there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and for whom we exist, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and through whom we exist. 1 Corinthians 8, 4-6.
Wes Huff says, God made everything good, and just because someone tries to corrupt and twist something like meat, or for that matter, a tree,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that they're successful. Even if someone has a meaning, something has a meaning to a pagan, it does not mean that it is also how God sees it. Agreed.
I mean, humans are real good at corrupting creation.
Yes, we are.
Real good at it.
Throughout, from the very beginning,
Yeah.
okay? At the end of the day, we shouldn't go against our conscience. If you really, truly believe that this is pagan and it goes against what God says, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And there are denominations and sects and individuals and families that believe that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't have to believe everything exactly like we do.
And Paul tells us in other places that we shouldn't, he uses the word disparage, but we shouldn't, make fun of them or discount them because of that.
Finally, according to Huff, as Paul commends both his ancient and modern audience, therefore do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're referring to.
Sorry. Yep.
So that's a evangelical, semi-scholarly perspective. He's presenting that to the masses, so it's not a scholarly work. So, but Wes Huff, who knows what he's talking about, and I agree with a lot of what he says.
Yep.
Okay. This is from a Catholic perspective. Okay, many Christians are Catholics, and many Catholics celebrate Christmas.
Yeah,
Christ's Mass. I mean, that's
the word Christmas means.
I mean, it's
the Mass of Christ. Yeah.
So, all right. So this is from a Catholic perspective. Number one, Christians co-opted Christmas from the winter solstice celebration of Sol Invictus, okay? Yes, there were midwinter celebrations in religions outside Christianity during the time of the early church. In fact, as with Easter, the Eastern and Western churches observed Christmas differently. And until recently, the Americans didn't celebrate it. The Armenians didn't celebrate it at all. Americans did celebrate it.
Armenians did not.
The West led the way with a distinctive nativity-based celebration, concluding with the Holy Mass. Christmas was not an assimilated celebration until the 4th century. Does that mean that the Apostle John and Polycarp and Irenaeus, 3 men who were apostolically connected, did not celebrate Christmas? It could, but there's nothing wrong with this. There was never a debate about the birth of Christ. Rather, the debate was about the celebration of it as Christmas took time to develop. Okay? So people that maintain the Christmas's pagan roots have to ask themselves, after centuries of the church being persecuted for not observing pagan holidays, did it just suddenly say, okay, we give in, we're gonna adopt Christian beliefs? That's number one. Who influenced whom, which is kind of what Huff was saying also. Yeah. Did Christianity influence the pagans to begin to adopt a more public and concrete celebration, or did Christians Christianize a pagan event that was already happening? We can observe historically that the two celebrations were present at the time, but neither scenario is a problem for the Christian because the church has the ability to Christianize people in celebrations alike. Light overcame the darkness at the celebration of Sol Invictus, and in Christ, darkness was defeated by the real luminousness of Christ. Paganism had a hint, but Christianity had the fulfillment. Okay. So what did Paul say at the Areopagus? Areopagus.
Yeah.
What did Paul say at the Areopagus to the Greeks?
That's one of my favorite.
Let's read that. Acts 17.
For as I passed along and observed the object of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you, that every nation of men should seek God, in the hope that they might feel after him and find him.
So a desire for the unknown God is written on the hearts of all men.
Yeah.
We've already talked about that so many times. That's what righteousness is. We talked about Romans 1 and Romans 2. There is a standard. It's on all creation, and it's in our hearts. Okay, that's how people knew the law. That's how Abraham fulfilled the law before there was a law.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because it's on our hearts. God tells us and reveals it to him. All right, the Catechism of the Catholic Church puts it this way, and it's hard for me to say this, but the desire for God is written in the human heart. Agreed, because man is created by the God and for God, and God never ceases to draw man to himself. Only in God will he find the truth and happiness he never stops searching for. Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, Christmas tree comes from pagan origins.
Yeah,
and it's condemned in the Bible by Jeremiah, by the prophet Jeremiah. It's condemned. You're worshiping Ashtaroth if you have a Christmas tree. Okay, people have a field day with this one.
Yeah.
Evergreens are a near universal symbol of hope in winter season. They represent resurrection, triumph of life over death. For the Egyptians, everlasting life. And for the Scandinavians and Druids, an agricultural anticipation, like Saturnalia.
Yeah.
And then Saturnalia for the Greeks and Romans. But the tree was not recognized as a use of Christmas celebration until the time of the Reformation, Martin Luther. More closely connected to the ancient church is the use of evergreen wreaths. An objector might say that it came around the same time as the popularity of the pagan celebration Saturnalia, and that's true. The truth is, Tertullian wrote as early as 190 to 220 that Christians hang more wreaths and laurels than the pagans, who hang it for the gate gods at their doors. In this letter, Tertullian condemned the wreath as something into which to put hope in, as did the pagans with their temples, over that of Jesus, who is the true light, in which we are the actual temples of the Spirit. He wasn't condemning the decor. He ends it with, you are the light of the world, and a tree evergreen. If you have renounced temples, make not your own gate a temple. There's little evidence that the church adopted the practice from pagans that they were trying to convert. I don't agree with that. The passage in the Bible your objector likely is referring to is Jeremiah 10, 3-4. Let's read that.
Starting in verse 2, Jeremiah 10. Learn not the way of the nations, nor be dismayed at the signs of the heavens, because the nations are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vanity. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of a craftsman. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so that it cannot move. Ooh, so seems like the snowman in Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer was, he said silver and gold.
Silver and gold.
He was he was promoting paganism, basically.
And Jeremiah is talking about a Christmas tree, right?
100% he is.
So, first of all, Jeremiah had no concept of this mystery, as Paul put it.
Yeah.
The mystery of the incarnation and life and death and resurrection of Christ. No, they had no idea of that. Or they would have just been so excited and just told everybody, this is coming, you've got to,
Yeah.
I mean, they had no idea about it, right?
Right.
So he had no idea about Christmas. And what is he talking about? He's talking about the paganism of the time, okay? Like Ashtaroth poles and things like that. These are not trees that are for decorating and putting presents under and things like that. They are phallic symbols of fertility rites. Yeah. That's what they are. That's what Jeremiah is talking about. They're phallic symbols of fertility rites. He ain't talking about presents under the tree.
No.
This ain't a Christmas tree, all right? He was writing hundreds of years before Christmas became a celebration. He was pointing out that the idolatry of the people of that day, like Tertullian with the wreaths, was warning against the idolatry of those who put their hope in earthly gods and things.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, listen, my brothers and sisters, my friends, Jeremiah ain't talking about Christmas trees, okay? So, and listen, I am one that used to read this and think, oh, well, we shouldn't have a Christmas tree.
I remember those days.
That's me. But the truth is that's not what he's talking about. Okay. So it's okay to have a Christmas tree if you are not using it as a means of worship to other gods. Okay. All right.
Amen.
So that is a evangelical and a Catholic perspective, those who are adamant that Christmas is not pagan. But let's look at it from another perspective. Okay. In a way, it is pagan. First, what do we mean by pagan? All right. We say that word all the time.
Yeah.
All right.
It's thrown around a lot.
Okay. It encompasses anyone from the Babylonians to the Romans and Greeks to Scandinavia. Basically, it means you worship other gods besides the true one God. That's what it means.
That is what it means. Yes.
Okay. So if you worship any god, and most throughout all history, most religions were not monotheistic, right? There's only really three or four true monotheistic religions.
Yeah.
Okay. The three big ones, which we know, and almost everything else was polytheistic. So it's become synonymous with polytheism, paganism and polytheism. It's not really. It just means somebody who worships someone besides
The one true God.
the one true God, right?
And
The other is Zoroastrianism, which is the dualism, which kind of there's two gods, but it's really just one God with the Satan type figure, which opposes him. Okay. Although Christians aimed to spread the religion across Europe, they were still quite fascinated by many of the customs and ways. Many of these customs were rooted in pre-Christian traditions such as the Roman winter solstice celebrations, or many people's winter solstice celebrations, and other pagan rituals. Druids and Celtic traditions, for example, were among the pagan customs adopted by early Christians. They were fascinated enough to adopt a few of those beliefs and traditions as part of Christian Christmas celebrations, which eventually evolved into our modern Christmas traditions. Okay? The winter solstice celebration. Okay. Christmas is inspired by traditions from the Romans, Celtics, Norse, Druids, and more, all pagan. Okay? These different groups shared one big celebration that happened to fall around Christmas, the winter solstice, right? My wife, Wendy, and I love winter solstice so much and celebrate it so much that we got married on December 21st.
Man.
That's why.
That's commitment right there.
No, not really. It is December 21st, but that's not why. People living in the northern hemisphere celebrate the winter solstice as the shortest day of the year, right in the middle of December.
Yep.
And this is why Christmas just so happened to fall around the same time as many existing pagan holidays. Okay? The winter solstice was a huge part of pagan life, as they were primarily agricultural people, right? Winter marked the end of the year's harvest and the chance to enjoy the company of loved ones and rest from toiling in the fields. Okay? Plus, it was cold in most places, so they had to be inside.
Yeah.
Right? Pagans could stop farming through the winter and devoted themselves to worshiping their gods and celebrating their families and friends around them. Winter solstice celebrations such as Saturnalia and the Germanic Yule Festival symbolized hope and rebirth. They incorporated customs like feasting, gift-giving, and various rituals that embraced the return of longer days. As winter in the northern hemispheres tend to be dark, cold, and hungry, the winter solstice was celebrated to help keep people entertained and enjoy themselves until the sun came around again and rebirth.
So they just did it out of boredom.
Kinda.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Kinda. When are most babies born?
Yeah. Late spring, summer. Yeah.
Boredom.
Makes sense.
Got to do something.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't the line, it was the delivery.
It was they got to do something. That's what. I'm sorry. You can't make me laugh. Oh my gosh. Oh. Sorry. You gotta do something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Move on. Moving
Gift
on.
giving. So, Christmas traditions. We all give gifts during Christmas, right?
Yeah,
Even people that don't believe in Christmas
of course.
give gifts. I mean, there's all these other traditions around in December.
Mm-hmm.
Even paganism, even Hanukkah for Jewish people. What are some of the other ones?
I mean,
Kwanzaa, which
kinda
is celebrated.
made
Other traditions and Festivus.
Festivus. I mean, that's...
And in all those, there are certain things you give to each other, right?
Yeah.
Even in Festivus,
yeah,
right?
You give...
The airing of grievances.
Airing
You
of
give the
grievances.
grievances to each other,
That's your gift.
right?
That's right. And
The feats of strength. You give you wrestle each other.
that's right.
So there's gifts given. Gift giving is synonymous with Christmas, right? Especially in the West. It's a time to celebrate winter solstice, but between the 17th and 24th of the month, the Romans celebrated Saturnalia. It's a pagan holiday in honor of the agricultural god Saturn. In ancient Rome, Romans would spend the week of Saturnalia much like Christmas holidays, feasting. Now, does this sound familiar? They feast, they drink, they exchange gifts, and are joyful. What does that sound like?
Sounds like a great Christmas to me.
The people of ancient Rome celebrated winter solstice with Saturnalia. It was a way to celebrate and give thanks to Saturn. Okay? By the time the winter solstice came, the last planting season had been completed. Thus, the ancient Romans could happily engage the entire week of festivities. The festival was usually celebrated between December 17th and the 24th of December. Even now, Christmas is not really a celebration of one day, is it? We have the 12 days of
Christmas.
Okay, we'll talk about why that is in just a little bit. It's called the Christmas season, the holiday season, and the festivities start well in advance of December 25th. For you guys, it starts after Thanksgiving, right? For some people, it starts October 31st.
Some people it starts in September.
So, well, I mean, Jesus was born on September 11th, so we should start at September 11th.
We should.
In the Saturnalia festival, the 25th of December was considered the climax and had a special name, Brumalia. During Saturnalia and Brumalia, all social hierarchies were overturned. The people, including the slaves, indulged in widespread merrymaking. The slaves could even take part in public celebrations and not work on the last days of the festival. Public gambling was a big event. Everyone was allowed to wear, Matt, colorful clothes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish y'all could see Matt's jacket.
The Phrygian cap worn by freed Roman slaves. The Phrygian cap worn by freed Roman slaves was worn as a symbol of the freedom of the season. Many of the modern Christmas traditions originated in the ancient Roman Empire. The Romans had another festival, Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birth of the invincible sun. This was dedicated to Mithra, the sun god. In pre-Zoroastrian Persia, Mithra was the sun god of justice and war. He was heavily associated with the Roman sun god Sol. So they were, you know, how they have different names for some of the similar. If you read Herodotus is like, well, this is really this god and this god and this god. He's talking about the Egyptians and he's talking about the different peoples. And the Scythians, they have this god. It's really this god. So all of these gods are pretty much the same. They just have different names in their language, okay? Aurelian, the Roman Emperor Aurelian, declared that December 25th was the birthday of the unconquerable sun and was a festival mostly celebrated by upper-class male Romans. In fact, Mithraism was a special and select cult. It's interesting that Christians decided to celebrate the birth of Jesus on this very day. Now, did Aurelian adopt December 25th as some of these other people have claimed because the Christians had already decided that December 25th was the birthday of Jesus? Or did the Christians were celebrated December 25th because that's when Sol Invictus was celebrated? I don't know. Not everybody agrees on that. So I don't think there's a conclusive answer to that.
there is either.
Wes Huff thinks it's the Christians influenced the Romans, the pagans. I don't think that everybody agrees with that. Okay?
Yeah.
So does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. So Christmas Eve also holds significant cultural importance in various parts of the world. The Feast of the Seven Fishes in Italy, which features a seafood meal. That sounds good. I love seafood. Las Posadas in Mexico, which emphasizes family and community through unique culinary traditions. Okay?
Sounds good too.
Nowadays, we spend a lot of money on gifts, but back in the day, in Roman times, they exchanged small gifts for luck. The idea was to give a gift, hoping to bring in a bountiful harvest for the next year. Yule, another festival, also, and we're going to talk about Yule next, also influenced these gift-giving traditions, emphasizing the exchange of tokens for prosperity. Rather than having huge lists of gifts to give, the Romans also shared only one gift with the other person. Somewhere along the line, it became our consumerism, Western idea of this multi-billion-dollar industry of giving gifts at Christmas.
Yeah.
That's why it's called Black Friday.
Yeah.
All right, Yule. Other than Saturnalia, one of the festivals that had a huge influence on Christmas was Yule, as we just mentioned. Celebrated mostly by the Norse people, okay, or Germanic, Northern European Germanic peoples. That's what I would say. Many of the old Yule traditions have become Christmas traditions today. The celebrations lasted for 12 days and huge bonfires were lit. Feasting and drinking were a big part of the celebrations. The night before Yule was called Mother's Light. The Yule tree was decorated around the time of the winter solstice, and the Yule log would be lit so that families could feast and be merry by the fire all night. We've heard some of our Christmas songs talk about Yuletide and Yule and Yule, right? It's from these pagan peoples, okay? The Yule ham.
A Yule ham.
Was a huge aspect of the celebration since the boar was sacred to the pagan god Freyr. The Christians have appropriated many of these traditions to celebrate Christmas. That's why we eat ham, because these northern Germanic peoples brought traditions to us, and we incorporate it. I like ham.
I like ham.
Another important pagan holiday during the winter solstice was the birthday of the Greek god Dionysus. That's the Bacchus festival we mentioned earlier. The Greek god of wine was celebrated with revelry, feasts, drunkenness, and merrymaking over 12 days.
Jeez.
His birthday was supposed to be on
December 25th.
The festival was called Bacchanalia and was one marked by wildness and excess. In Finland, the sun goddess Biwe was celebrated during this time. She was said to ride on a sleigh made of reindeer bones and pulled by white reindeer. Perhaps she was a precursor to Santa. The Slavic people had their own winter festivals. Karakun is a pagan holiday that's celebrated in honor of the black god Kerneborg. And I don't think his race was black. I just think it meant he's dark. He's evil. Okay?
That's what I figured, yeah.
Very, very similar to Samhain and Halloween, this was a day when all Slavic gods associated with darkness and decay were most potent. Okay. However, the white god or the sun god is resurrected the next day and he triumphs again. Ancient Slavs lit fires in cemeteries and crossroads on this day to keep their loved ones warm. Feasts were organized to honor the dead and feed them. These practices have merged with modern Christmas traditions. Okay.
I guess I haven't seen anybody going to cemeteries and lighting fires during Christmas, though.
No, but we're not Slavic, so.
That is true.
Santa's image and Christmas stockings. All right. We read The Night Before Christmas as our opening story, right?
I loved that story as a
kid.
It
is. I did too.
It was one of my favorite things.
How can you not? It's just, it's so wondrous. And Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas to all and to all good night. I mean, it's just part of our culture now, right? Our current modern day image of Santa Claus clad in, so the modern day, how we see Santa Claus clad in red fur with a long, big white beard was largely developed by, Randy, marketing from Coca-Cola in the 1930s. But the idea of an old man giving gifts to children dates much earlier to that, to pagan times, okay? Father Christmas or St. Nicholas was a patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. We'll talk about him a lot more later. Living around the 4th century AD, St. Nicholas was a generous bishop that was known for giving gifts to the poor, sporting a big beard and a long cloak, much like Santa Claus. But even before St. Nicholas, there was another man, old man named Odin.
Father of Thor.
Yeah. This deity was worshipped by early Germanic pagan tribes, traditionally portrayed as an old man with a long white beard and an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir, who he would ride through the skies.
An 8-legged horse.
Well, I mean, 8's better than 4.
Gee whiz.
I bet that dude can move.
Yeah, seriously.
Just like Santa's reindeer.
Yeah.
During the winter, 8-legged, so 8 reindeer. See where we're going here?
Yeah.
During the winter, kids would fill their booties with carrots and straws and leave them by the chimney for Sleipnir to feed on. Odin would fly by and reward the children with little presents in their booties. Does that sound like filling stockings?
Yeah, it does.
Much like we do with Christmas stockings today. All right. The English origin of Father Christmas. So we are heavily influenced in the United States by the English. Okay? So a lot of people, come from England and Europe and Western Europe and things like that. So we are heavily influenced by Germanic peoples and by English peoples who are influenced by Germanic peoples also. From his earliest days until the 19th century, Father Christmas, that's what the English call Santa Claus, we call him Santa Claus, was an allegorical figure. He was a symbol of a Christmas season rather than a mythical being. He was depicted as a merry old man who presided over festive parties, not a giver of gifts. And that's largely because Christmas was celebrated differently, with much more emphasis on entertainment for adults, kind of like the Festival Bacchus and Saturnalia and things like that. The earliest evidence for a personified Christmas. All right, so how would the English traditions of this time of year be influenced by the Romans and Roman paganism? And by Germanic paganism?
I don't know.
The British Isles were in a Roman territory at one point.
They were.
Right?
Yeah,
so they were
course.
heavily influenced by Roman pagan festivals.
Makes sense.
And then they were conquered by Germanic peoples. Okay? So we have lots and lots and lots. They have from Celtic peoples, from Germanic peoples, and from Roman peoples. They have all those influence of the pagan festivals that influence some of the things that happen in the British Isles.
Right.
And then as people immigrated to the New World, we are influenced by those peoples as well. Okay? Do you see the
Makes sense.
the evolution here?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. The earliest evidence for a personified Christmas can be found in 15th century carol in which a character named Sir Christmas shares the news of Christ's birth. He tells his audience to make good cheer and be merry. Merry Christmas. Another precursor to Father Christmas could be found in York, where a festival called the Yule Ridings took place on December 21st. A man disguised as Yule carried cakes and meat through the streets and threw nuts to the crowd. Sounds like Mardi Gras.
Yeah, a little bit.
In 1572, the procession was banned after complaints of very rude and barbarous behavior. Elsewhere,
Barbarous.
in Tudor and Stuart times, specially appointed lords of misrule oversaw Christmas celebrations in aristocratic houses and were sometimes given names like Captain Christmas. Have no fear.
Captain Christmas is here.
The Christmas Lord. And Prince Christmas.
I like Captain Christmas.
I do too. That's my
I
favorite.
need a shield.
But none of these personifications of Christmas make him out to be a father or an old man. For that, the world will have to wait until Ben Jonson, the playwright. Jonson's Christmas was performed at the Royal Court in 1616. In the play, the character of Christmas appeared in old-fashioned clothes with a long beard. My beard's not long. Calling himself Old Christmas or Old Gregory Christmas. He chides the guards for refusing to let him into the party and argues that he is as good as a Protestant as any in my parish. A pointed comment at the time when Christmas celebrations were coming under attack from Puritans. Johnson's character of Christmas is definitely old, and he's definitely a father. He brings with him several of his sons and daughters, each personifying a different tradition of the period, with names like Misrule, Carol, Mince Pie, Mumming, and Wassail. Christmas himself came with no gifts, but one of his sons, New Year's gift, brought an orange and a sprig of rosemary with a collar of gingerbread and a bottle of wine in either arm. The Puritan attack on Christmas intensified before, during, and after the English Civil War from 1642 to 51. Royalists flocked to Christmas's defense and once again personified the season to make their case. And in the 1645 pamphlet, The Arrangement, Conviction, and Imprisonment of Christmas, in this allegorical story, a woman asked the Oxford town crier where old Father Christmas has gone. She is told that the poor old man was arraigned, condemned, and after his conviction cast into prison among the king's soldiers, fearing to be hanged. The dadgum Puritans were trying to kill Father Christmas.
Yes, they are.
Sure enough, in 1647, Parliament banned Christmas altogether, along with Easter, Whitsun, and many other traditional holidays. Thank you, Puritans.
Yeah.
He also featured in a pamphlet of 1652 by the Royalist John Taylor called The Vindication of Christmas. And in 1658, a pamphlet called The Examination and Trial of Old Father Christmas depicted him as an old man with a white beard and old-fashioned fur trim gown. He's put on trial for his life, and thankfully, he's acquitted by the jury. Of course he is. It's like Miracle on 34th Street.
That's right.
Right?
That's exactly what it is.
Christmas returned after the restoration of 1660, and Father Christmas went on to appear in a stage play and folk drama over the next 200 years. Okay? But he remained removed from our understanding of the man. He was essentially concerned with the adult world, personifying feasts and games. He had no connection with presents, and he was not treated with much respect, being generally a burlesque figure of fun. Okay? Father Christmas enjoyed a mini renaissance in the first half of the 19th century, okay? So 1800s. In illustrations, he was sometimes shown as a winter sprite with garlands of holly on his head, surrounded by food and drink, and he featured in many folks' plays of the era. He also closely resembles the Ghost of Christmas Present from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Okay, but Christmas was evolving. With the Victorian focus on family and life, it would no longer just be a time for drinking, feasting, and being merry. And this new kind of Christmas needed a new kind of old man to represent it. Enter...
Well, what a segue.
St. Nicholas and Sinterklaas. Long before Father Christmas emerged, the separate legend of Sinterklaas was going around in Europe. Okay, the origins of Sinterklaas can be found in stories of St. Nicholas, this 4th century Greek bishop from Myra, now in modern day Turkey. Okay, St. Nicholas's fame spread throughout medieval Europe after his relics were rescued from Myra and taken to Italy in 1087. Over time, tales of his gold-giving exploits gave rise to the tradition of leaving gifts for children on the night before December 6th, which was St. Nicholas's Day. In the Netherlands, special markets sprang up to sell toys and treats for the occasion, and St. Nicholas or Sinterklaas impersonators dressed in red bishops' costumes to delight the crowd. Do you see why he's red?
Mm-hmm.
Because of bishops and cardinals, right?
Yeah.
Tradition has it that in his quest to deliver presents, St. Nicholas would enter houses by passing through locked doors or descending down chimneys to leave gifts and shoes and stockings. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Much like the English Father Christmas, Sinterklaas came under attack during and after the Reformation, with Protestants keen to move away from the veneration of saints. The baby Jesus was promoted as a more appropriate giver of gifts, known in Germany as Das Christenkindl, anglicized as Kris Kringle. St. Nicholas markets were banned, as were biscuits baked in the shape of the bishop. But it's clear that popular traditions kept on rolling.
Yep.
One depiction is Jan Steen's 17th century painting of the Feast of St. Nicholas, which shows a chaotic domestic Dutch scene of gift-giving and feasting. More evidence of their survival comes from the ways that Sinterklaas's universe expanded to include a host of frightening, violent characters who delved out punishments to naughty children, like Krampus, Per Futard, Roeklaus, Pelschnickel, and Knecht Rupert. Okay?
Dwight Schrute dressed up as Belschnickel.
Did he really? Is that what it was? It wasn't Krampus.
It was
Belschnickel.
Belschnickel. Yeah.
Belschnickel. Okay. Furry Nicholas. That means furry Nicholas.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's not entirely clear how Sinterklaas made his way across the Atlantic to North America to become Santa. It's possible that his story made its way to the Dutch colony of New Amsterdam, which later became New York.
Yep.
In 1773, the Rivington's Gazetteer, New York, reported that the anniversary of St. Nicholas, otherwise called Santa Claus, had recently been marked by a great number of sons of that ancient saint. Washington Irving's story in 1809 of New York claimed that old Dutch families still told tales of Sinterklaas on St. Nicholas Day. He was said to fly over the city in a wagon and climb down chimneys to deliver presents. So that was from Washington Irving. Whether or not Irving was using a poetic license is unclear, but the idea stuck and the legend grew with a poem featuring Sancte Claus published in the New York Spectator a year later in 1810. Some historians think that Irving and other New Yorkers were inventing new traditions to create a gentler, family-oriented kind of Christmas tradition in the city, which had begun to suffer from the unpleasant bouts of drunken mob violence in the days around December 25th. About right.
Yeah.
In 1821, an anonymous illustrated poem called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight introduced Santa's red coat, reindeer, and sleigh and put his arrival on Christmas Eve rather than St. Nicholas's Day. 2 years later, Clement Clark Moore, professor of Hebrew in the city, embellished the legend in his poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, better known as The Night Before Christmas. We just read that.
Yep.
In it, St. Nick got his bushy beard and a whole herd of magical flying reindeer. 8. His appearance was decidedly not that of the Dutch bishop. Instead, he was a right jolly old elf, with clothes all tarnished with ashes and soot, twinkling eyes, merry dimples, and a beard as white as snow. Other writers and artists added new layers to the legend, and gradually Santa Claus took form over St. Nicholas. For several decades of the 19th century, he took a variety of forms, tall and short, fat and thin, and with a rainbow of colors. In 1863, a cartoonist, Thomas Nast, depicted him dressed in the Stars and Stripes, speaking to Union troops during the American Civil War. Of course, he was very patriotic. Nast eventually did more than any other artist to set the standard for Santa's classic look. In 1881, Nast had perfected the vision of Santa seen in the Merry Old Santa Claus. His illustrations for A Visit from St. Nicholas were hugely popular, and he introduced the world to Santa's workshop, as well as the notion that his base of operations was found at the North Pole, of course. While we're here, it's worth pointing out that the idea that Coca-Cola invented Santa is a myth. The fizzy pop pushers didn't start using them into the adverts until the 1930s, but our popular idea through their marketing has given us the modern idea of Santa Claus. Okay, so some of the ideas were already there, but they kind of perfected it and pushed it out to the masses. Yeah. Okay, so that's not necessarily true. They didn't invent Santa Claus, but they gave us our modern idea of him and pushed it out to the masses because of their marketing, right?
Yeah.
That's what marketing does, Randy, right? Who is St. Nicholas? Okay. He was born during the 3rd century in the village of Patara in Asia Minor, in modern-day Turkey. At the time, the area was Greek and is now on the southern coast of Turkey. His wealthy parents, who raised him to be a devout Christian, died in an epidemic while Nicholas was still young. Now, saying it's Greek is not necessarily true. It's Greco-Roman, so it's Roman, right? Yeah. During the Roman Empire, but it's the eastern part of the empire were more Greek influenced, and the western were more Latin influenced. Yeah. Okay, that's what we mean by that. So his parents died in an epidemic when he was young. Obeying Jesus' words to sell what you own and give the money to the poor, Nicholas used his whole inheritance to assist the needy, the sick, and the suffering. He dedicated his life to serving God and was made Bishop of Myra while he was still a young man. Bishop Nicholas became known throughout the land for his generosity to those in need, his love for children, and his concern for sailors and ships. This is all in Asia Minor, these places, okay? Under the Emperor Diocletian, who ruthlessly persecuted Christians, Bishop Nicholas suffered for his faith, was exiled and imprisoned. The prisons were so full of bishops, priests, and deacons that there was no room for real criminals, murderers, thieves, and robbers. After his release, Nicholas attended the Council of Nicaea in 325. He died December 6, 343 in Myra, and was buried in his cathedral church, where a unique relic called manna formed in his grave. This liquid substance, said to have healing powers, fostered the growth of the devotion to St. Nicholas. The anniversary of his death became a day of celebration, St. Nicholas Day, December 6th, December 19th, if on the Julian calendar. Through the centuries, many stories and legends have been told of St. Nicholas's life and deeds. These accounts help us understand the extraordinary character and why he's so beloved and revered as protector and helper of those in need. Okay, we'll go through a few of those. One story was there was a poor man with 3 daughters. In those days, a woman's father had to offer prospective husbands a dowry. The larger the dowry, the better better chance the young woman would find a good husband. Without a dowry, a woman was unlikely to marry. This poor man's daughters, without dowries, were therefore destined to be sold into slavery. Mysteriously, on 3 different occasions, a bag of gold appeared in their home, providing the needed dowries. The bags of gold, tossed through the open window, are said to have landed in the stockings or shoes left before the fire to dry. This led to the custom of children hanging stockings or putting shoes, eagerly awaiting gifts from St. Nicholas. Sometimes the story was told with gold balls instead of bags of gold. That is why these 3 gold balls, sometimes represented as oranges, are one of the symbols for St. Nicholas. And so St. Nicholas is a gift giver. He's also a protector of children. This takes place long after his death. The town people of Myra were celebrating the good saint on the eve of the feast day when a band of Arab pirates from Crete came into the district. They stole treasures from the church of St. Nicholas to take away his booty. As they were leaving town, they snatched a young boy, Basilios, and make him a slave. The emir, or ruler, selected Basilios to be his personal cupbearer. As not knowing the language, Basilios would not understand what the king was saying to those around him. So, for the next year, he waited on the king, bringing his wine in a beautiful golden cup. For Basilios' parents, devastated by the loss of their only son, the year passed slowly, filled with grief. As the next St. Nicholas's feast approached, Basilios' mother would not join in the festivity, as it was to her a day of tragedy. However, she was persuaded to have a simple observance at home with quiet prayers for Basilios' safekeeping. Meanwhile, as Basilios was fulfilling his task, serving the emir, he was whisked up and away. St. Nicholas appeared to the terrified boy, blessed him, and set him down at his home back in Myra. Imagine the joy and wonderment when Basilios amazingly appeared before his parents, still holding the king's golden cup. This is the first story told of St. Nicholas protecting children and became his primary role in the West. Okay, this is interesting. There's these 3 seminary students traveling on their way to study in Athens. A wicked innkeeper robbed and murdered them, hiding their remains in a large pickling tub. It so happened that Bishop Nicholas, traveling along the same route, stopped at this very inn In the night, he dreamed of the crime, got up, and summoned the innkeeper. As Nicholas prayed earnestly to God, the 3 boys were restored to life and wholeness. In France, the story is told of 3 small children wandering in their play until lost, lured, and captured by an evil butcher. St. Nicholas appears and appeals to God to return them to life and to their families. And so St. Nicholas is the patron and protector of children. Okay, it goes on and on. There's many, many of these. He became the patron saint of sailors. In Palestine, St. Nicholas is purported to have moved and founded many churches there. He wanted to be close to where Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but he didn't want to be in the same place. So he set up in Beit Jala. And there's many legends, but Beit Jala, which is right next to Bethlehem. So there's many legends of St. Nicholas performing some of these miracles and duties and things like that as he went and spread the gospel in Palestine and lived in Beit Jala. That's widely spread from, still to this day, from the people that live in the West Bank. We talked to many Christians there that tell us these stories about St. Nicholas and Beit Jala in the West Bank. Yeah.
One of my favorite stories about St. Nicholas, which is there's no historical evidence.
Well, none of these there's any historical evidence.
It's when he smacked Arius in the Council of Nicaea. Remember, Arius was basically saying that Jesus was not eternal, and that Nicholas got up and smacked him in the face and said, "You're wrong." Anyway,
boom.
Yeah.
So he gives gives gold and gifts to children and protects children. He helps the poor and underprivileged, and he hits Arius in the face.
And he protects solid theology.
Yeah. So that's St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas's feast day, December 6th, was kept alive. Kept alive the stories of his goodness and generosity. In Germany and Poland, boys dressed as bishops beg alms for the poor, sometimes for themselves. And in the Netherlands and Belgium, St. Nicholas arrived on the steamship from Spain to ride a white horse on his gift-giving rounds. December 6th is still the main day for gift-giving and merrymaking in much of Europe. For example, in the Netherlands, St. Nicholas is celebrated on the 5th, the eve of the day, by sharing candies, chocolate letters, small gifts, and riddles. Dutch children leave carrots and hay in their shoes for the saint's horse, hoping St. Nicholas will exchange them for gifts. Simple gift giving in early Advent helps preserve a Christmas Day focus on the Christ child. Okay.
That's a pretty good idea.
So, Christmas carols are the creed of Christendom. While the carols we sing for Christmas are Christian, not all of them, some of them are. A lot of them are. The tradition of going door to door singing to your neighbors is from a pagan tradition called wassailing. The rather funny word comes from the Anglo-Saxon word Wes Huff, translating to good health. Every year, these singers would roam around the village in small groups, serenading their neighbors and wishing away evil spirits and bad health and wishing good health to those around them. No wassailing group was complete without their traditional drink, made from mulled ale, curdled cream, roasted apples, eggs, spices, and sugar. Sounds very Christmassy, doesn't it?
Doesn't sound good.
No.
Curdled cream and eggs.
But that's kind of where
I guess that's where
eggnog came from. And also, people call spiced apple cider wassail.
Wassail. Yep.
That's where they get it from.
Yep.
St. Francis in the 13th century took inspiration from these wassailers and began the Christmas tradition of door-to-door carolers. Yule, another festival with deep-rooted customs of singing and celebration, also influenced the tradition of festive singing. Kissing under the mistletoe. So cozy up to your sweetie.
That's right.
And kiss under the mistletoe. Ever wonder why mistletoe and kissing became synonymous? The significance of holly and mistletoe came as holly and mistletoe were sacred plants for the pagans. Everyone from Romans and Celts to the Druids and the Norse knew about mistletoe. It was considered a very sacred plant and was all involved in several pagan rituals. In the Roman world, mistletoe honored the god Saturnalia. To keep him happy, they would perform fertility rituals underneath the sprigs of mistletoe. So thankfully, we just kiss now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeesh. I mean, Rome was bad.
In the world of Druids, mistletoe symbolized peace and joy. In times of war, if enemies met underneath mistletoe, they would drop their weapons and form a truce until the next day. In a way, kissing is a form of truce.
But just for a day.
Just for that day. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. La la.
La la.
La la. So holly was also a sacred plant connected to Saturn. During the Saturnalia holiday, Romans made holly wreaths to exchange as gifts for good luck. This is what some of those Christian people were talking about. Did the Romans adopt the holly from the Christians or Christians from the Romans? The Christians adopted it from the Romans because it was used for Saturnalia for a long time. Okay.
Gotcha.
However, Christians were persecuted for being Christians. Okay. It was lucky that Christmas coincided with Saturnalia, allowing Christians to have a cover for their Christmas celebration. So what they did to avoid detection, they would hang holly wreaths around their homes. This allowed them to recognize each other and still do something nice to celebrate their sacred holiday. Eventually, as pagans decreased, holly became the symbol of Christmas instead of Saturnalia. So it was kind of like the little ichthus fish.
Yeah, a little bit.
Christmas tree decorating. One of the main Christmas traditions that families incorporate into their Christmas time is decorating the Christmas tree together, right? We do.
But as we read in Jeremiah, that's pagan. Shouldn't do it. Don't do it.
It's pagan. I mean, Jeremiah said that we were worshiping Ashtoreth. So, I mean, so we shouldn't have
Take 'em
Christmas
down.
tree anyway.
Take them down.
We've talked about a lot of inspiration from the Romans, Saturnalia, Sol Invictus, Bacchus, the Festival of Bacchus, lots of things. So during Saturnalia, Romans feasted, drank, and exchanged gifts. They also hung small metal ornaments on the trees outside their homes. These little ornaments represented a god, Saturn, or the family's personal patron saint. Early Germanic tribes practiced a similar tree decorating tradition with fruits and candles to honor the god Odin through their winter solstice. Yule also involved tree decorating traditions. Christians seem to have merged tree decorating with ornaments, candles, and fruits to make Christmas tree decorating one extravagant tradition. So those that say Martin Luther is the one that started this tradition of tree decorating, it's just not true. I mean, Protestants revere Martin Luther, which, you know, I get. But he didn't start decorating Christmas trees. He just did it. He just did it. Or decorating trees for this time of year.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean we're incorporating pagan beliefs? Are we when we decorate our tree? Are we celebrating Ashtoreth? Or are we celebrating Saturn? Are we celebrating Odin?
No, I'm not.
I'm not.
I'm not worshiping either.
Do you think Martin Luther was? My
Definitely
gosh,
not.
I've never met him. He's been dead a long time, but I imagine he would not celebrate any of those Germanic gods.
No.
Right? So he didn't start it, but it's not pagan to celebrate those things, even though there is a pagan origin to these things. Okay, pagan peoples did the same thing, and it was pre-Christian. It just was. Okay, modern Christmas trees originated in Germany during the Renaissance. The lighting of candles on trees in order to celebrate Christmas is traced to Martin Luther, but it had the Christmas tree has much more ancient predecessors. Okay, so that's it. It's not pagan necessarily, but it was practiced by pagan peoples to decorate Christmas tree. All right, we've talked about that.
Yep.
Okay, when was Christmas first celebrated? The church decided to celebrate Christmas at the same time as winter solstice to increase its chances of it being embraced by the masses. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but this meant that they had to give up control over how it would be celebrated. It seems they were successful since Christianity had almost completely replaced pagan religions by the Middle Ages. The first celebrations of Christmas started in the 4th century CE after an official date was declared. Believers attended church, exchanged gifts, and celebrated in a carnival-like atmosphere. It was certainly not a sedate or dignified kind of festival, and people of all social classes came together to celebrate. So they celebrated it much in the way some of the pagan traditions were celebrated, it sounds like. Okay? It was only in the 17th century, with the wave of Puritan religious reforms, that this kind of Christmas celebration changed. In England, Oliver Cromwell and his government canceled Christmas in 1645 to remove the decadence. The festival was reinstated by Charles II when he took the throne, but the Puritans always looked down on the holiday. This was especially true of the Orthodox pilgrims who immigrated to the United States in the 17th century. Only in the 19th century did the Americans begin to embrace Christmas, as it did not become a federal holiday until 1870 in the United States. Okay? So why do we celebrate on the 25th? So we talked about a few of those things. Okay? The earliest writings, the apostolic writings, Irenaeus or Tertullian, don't mention it. Origen of Alexandria goes so far as to mock Roman celebrations of birth anniversaries, dismissing them as pagan practices, a strong indication that Jesus' birth was not marked with similar festivities at the place and time of origin. As far as we could tell, Christmas was not celebrated at all at this point. Okay, this stands in sharp contrast to the early traditions surrounding Jesus' last days. Each of the four Gospels provides detailed information about the time of Jesus' death. According to John, Jesus is crucified just as Passover lambs are being sacrificed. This would have occurred on the 14th of Nisan, just before the Pesach began at sundown, right? In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, however, the Last Supper is held after sundown on the beginning of the 15th. Jesus is crucified the next morning. Okay, still the 15th.
Yep.
Easter, a much earlier development than Christmas, was simply the gradual reinterpretation of Passover in terms of Jesus' passion. When we get to Easter season, we would talk about the pagan is Easter pagan. We'll talk about the same similar thing that we're talking about with Christmas. We'll talk about that, okay? And its observance could even be implied in the New Testament. 1 Corinthians 5, 7 through 8. Our Paschal Lamb, Christ, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the festival. Okay? In our family, we don't call it Easter. We call it Resurrection Day, but we also celebrate Pesach.
Yep.
Passover. Okay? It was certainly a distinctive Christian feast by the mid-2nd century CE, when the apocryphal text known as the Epistle to the Apostles says Jesus instruct his disciples to make commemoration of his death, that is,
The Passover.
the Passover. Jesus' ministries, miracle, death, and resurrection were often of most interest to first and early 2nd century Christian writers. But over time, Jesus' origins would become of increasing concern. We can begin to see that this shift already happening in the New Testament. The earliest writings, Paul and Mark, made no mention of Jesus' birth. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke provide well-known but quite different accounts of the event, although neither specifies a date. Okay, in the early 2nd century, further details of Jesus' birth and childhood are related in apocryphal writings, but we're not going to talk about those. Finally, in 200 CE, a Christian teacher in Egypt makes reference to the date Jesus is born. According to Clement of Alexandria, several different days have been proposed by different Christian groups. Okay? Quote, there are those that have determined not only the year of the Lord's birth, but also the day, and they say that it took place on the 28th of the year of Augustus, and is the 25th day of Pagan. Okay, that's the May 20th. In treating of his passion with very great accuracy, some say that it took place in the 16th year of Tiberius on the 25th of Phaemonth, March 21st, and others on the 25th of Pharmuti, April 21st, and others say the 19th of Pharmuti, April 15th, the Savior suffered. Further, others say that he was born on the 24th or 25th of Pharmuti, April 20th or 21st. Clearly, there was a great uncertainty, but also amount of interest in dating Jesus' birth in the late 2nd century. By the 4th century, however, we find references to due dates that were widely recognized. These might sound familiar: December 25th and January 6th in the East. The modern Armenian church continues to celebrate Christmas on January 6th. For most Christians, however, December 25th would prevail, while January 6th eventually became known as the Feast of Epiphany, commemorating the arrival of the Magi in Bethlehem. The period between became the holiday season known as the 12 Days of Christmas. The earliest mention of December 25th as Jesus' birthday came in the mid-4th century Roman almanac that lists the dates of various Christian bishops and martyrs. The first date listed, December 25th, is marked Natus Christus in Bethlehem, Judea. Christ was born in Bethlehem of Judea. In about 400, Augustine mentions a local dissident group, the Donatists, who kept Christmas festivals on December 25th, but refused to celebrate the Epiphany of January 6th, regarding it as new, an innovation. Since the Donatist group only emerged during the persecution under Diocletian in 312, and then remain stubbornly attached to the practices of that moment in time. They seem to represent an older North African Christmas tradition. In the Eastern churches, January 6th was at first not associated with the Magi alone, but with Christmas story as a whole. So almost 300 years after Jesus was born, we finally found people observing his birth in midwinter. But where did they find these dates of December 25th and 6th? The most common theory, especially among non-Christians, is that Christians borrowed this date from pagan celebrations. The Romans had their midwinter Saturnalia festival in late December. These pagan peoples of northern and western Europe kept holidays at similar times. Okay, to top it off, in 274 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian established the Feast of Sol Invictus on December 25th. We've talked about that before. Christmas is really a spin-off of the pagan solar festivals. According to this theory, early Christians deliberately chose these dates to encourage the spread of Christmas and Christianity throughout the Roman world. If Christmas looked like a pagan holiday, more pagans would be open to both the holiday and the God whose birth it celebrated. Okay, that's a very common theory.
Yeah.
Don't think that's true. Despite its popularity today, this theory of Christmas's origins has its problems. It's not found in any ancient Christian writings. Christian authors of the time did note a connection between the solstice and Jesus' birth. Ambrose described Christ as the true sun who outshone the fallen gods of the older, but the early Christian writers never hint at any calendrical engineering. They clearly don't think the date was chosen by the church. Rather, they see it as this coincidence as a providential sign, as natural proof that God had selected Jesus over the false gods. In the 12th century, we find that suggestion that Jesus' birth celebration was deliberately set at the time of the pagan feast. A note in the manuscript of Syriac biblical commentator Dionysius Barsalabi states that in ancient times, a Christmas holiday was actually shifted from January 6th to December 25th so that it fell on the same date as Sol Invictus. Nobody really believes that. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Bible scholars spurned by the new study of comparative religions latched onto this idea. They claimed that because the early Christians didn't know when Jesus was born, they simply assimilated the pagan solstice festival for their own purposes, claiming it was the time of the Messiah's birth and celebrating it accordingly. More recent studies have shown that many of the holidays and modern trappings do reflect pagan customs borrowed much later as Christianity expanded into the northern and western Europe. We talked about some of these things. Okay. Christian belief and practice were not formed in isolation. They were influenced by many of the pagan festivals around them, including Eucharistic meals, meals honoring martyrs, and much early Christian art. Would have been quite comprehensible to pagan observers. Yet, in the first few centuries AD, the persecuted Christian minority was greatly concerned with distancing itself from larger public pagan religious observances, such as sacrifices, games, and holidays. This was still true as late as the violent persecutions conducted by the Emperor Diocletian, 303 to 312. This would change when Constantine converted to Christianity. From the mid-4th century on, we do find Christians deliberately adapting and Christianizing pagan festivals. A famous proponent of this theory was Pope Gregory the Great, who, in a letter written in 601, recommended that local pagan temples not be destroyed but be converted into churches, and that pagan festivals be celebrated as feasts of Christian martyrs. At this late point, Christmas may well have acquired some pagan trappings, but we don't have evidence of Christians adopting pagan festivals in the 3rd century, at which point dates for Christmas were established. Thus, it seems unlikely that the date was simply selected to correspond with pagan solar festivals. This feast, December 25th, seems to have existed before 312, before Constantine and his conversion, and as we have seen, the Donatist Christians in North Africa seem to have known it before that time. Furthermore, in the mid and late 4th century, church leaders in the Eastern Empire concerned themselves not with introducing a celebration of Jesus' birthday, but with the addition of the December date to their traditional celebration of January 6th. It doesn't make any sense, and we mentioned this a little earlier, that really dating Jesus' birth depends on dating his crucifixion and death.
Yeah.
Because there was a widespread belief that Jesus' life began in utero on at the same time as his crucifixion and death and resurrection. So if we can figure out when he was crucified, which we know is a Passover, and we probably can calculate exactly when it was, Nisan 14, during those years that he was supposed to have died and resurrected. Then we can determine 9 months later, that's when he was born, approximately. So this view was suggested by French scholar Louis Duquesne in the early 20th century and developed by Thomas Talley. But they weren't the first to have a connection between that. We've talked about that before. So in 200, Tertullian of Carthage reported the calculation that 14th of Nisan in the year Jesus was crucified was about March 25th, 9 months before December 25th. It was later recognized as the Feast of the Annunciation, the commemoration of Jesus' conception. Thus, Jesus was believed to have been conceived and crucified on the same day. Exactly 9 months later, he was born on December 25th, of course. Is there any biblical or scriptural evidence that he was conceived? That's the word I was looking for earlier, conceived. At the exact same time and the exact same date that he was crucified and resurrected. I don't know where they got that from. But that was a common idea.
Yeah.
Wrong. It's not September 11th, so it can't be correct.
Yeah.
The idea appears in an anonymous Christian treatise on solstices and equinoxes, which appeared to come from 4th century North Africa. The treatise states, "Therefore, our Lord was conceived on the 8th of calendar of April in the month of March, which is the day of the passion of the Lord and of his conception. For on the day he was conceived, on the same he suffered." Based on this treatise, it dates Jesus' birth as the winter solstice. Again, it's from some random guy writing in North Africa. But it became popular because, hey, it makes sense, right?
Yep.
Augustine was familiar with this association, and on the Trinity he writes, "For he, Jesus, is believed to have been conceived on the 25th of March, upon which day also he suffered. So the womb of the Virgin in which he was conceived, where no one of mortals was begotten, correspond to the new grave in which he was buried, wherein was never man laid, neither before nor since. But he was born according to tradition upon December 25th. In the East, the dates of Jesus' conception and death were linked, but instead of from the 14th of Nisan, they used the 14th of the first spring month in their local Greek calendar. So it's April 6th. So April 6th plus 9 months equals
January 6th.
January 6th, okay?
But also, every child is born exactly 9 months.
Exactly 9 months. Exactly.
Every child.
To the second that they were conceived.
We know that's not true either. Of course.
Bishop Epiphanius of Salamis writes on April 6th, "The Lamb was shut up in the spotless womb of the Holy Virgin. He who took away and takes away in perpetual sacrifice the sins of the world." Even today, the Armenian Church celebrates the Annunciation in early April and Christmas on January 6th. Thus, we have Christians in two parts of the world calculating Jesus' birth on the basis that his death and conception took place on the same day, and coming up with these two close but different results, December 25th and January 6th. Connecting Jesus' conception and death in this way will certainly seem odd to modern readers, but it reflects ancient and medieval understandings of the whole of salvation being bound together. I get it, okay?
Yeah.
One of the most poignant expressions of this belief is found in Christian art. In numerous paintings of the angel's annunciation to Mary, the moment of his conception, the baby Jesus is shown gliding down from heaven on or with a small cross. Of course, he already had the cross.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's Master Bertram's Annunciation scene. A visual reminder that the conception brings the promised salvation through Jesus' death. I get it. I get it.
It's a great picture, yeah.
But there's no biblical evidence of that. Okay. All right. Here's the key. And this will kind of wrap up what we were talking about. The notion that creation and redemption should occur at the same time of year is also reflected in an ancient Jewish tradition recorded in the Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud preserves a dispute between two early 2nd century rabbis who share this view, but disagree on the date. Rabbi Eliezer states in Nisan, the world was created. In Nisan, the patriarchs were born. On Passover, Isaac was born. And in Nisan, they will be redeemed in time to come. The Rabbi Joshua dates these same events to Tishri 1, okay, the Rosh Hashanah. Thus, the dates of Christmas and Epiphany may have resulted from Christian theological reflection of such chronologies, which could be apostolic, but we don't have any evidence of that.
We don't.
But it could be. Jesus would have been conceived on the same date he died and born 9 months later. So Joshua thinks it was Tishri, right? So I think that's what I believe too.
That's when he was conceived.
Tishri 1.
Yeah.
That's when he was born.
That would put it September 11th.
Yeah.
Yep.
September 11th. In the end, we are left with one question. How did December 25th become Christmas? We don't know.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of different views. There's nothing definitive.
Elements of the festival that developed in the 4th century until modern times may well derive from pagan traditions, but the date may derive more from Second Temple or Rabbinic Judaism or Apostolic Judaism, from Jesus' death at Passover, and from the rabbinic notion that great things are expected again and again on the same time of year, than from paganism. Then again, it could be this notion of cycles and the return of God's redemption. We may be touching on something the pagan Romans, who had celebrated Sol Invictus, and many other people since, would have understood and claimed for their own too. The conclusion of our argument is Christmas, according to these things we've just talked about, is Christmas pagan?
Well, we're our time to vote now.
Yeah, it's time to vote. Put down your devices. Stop everything. Stop the presses. It's time to vote. Is Christmas pagan? Yes or no? Is Christmas pagan? Yes.
Again, it's a loaded question.
Christmas pagan? Yes.
Does it have pagan roots? Maybe they...
Just answer the question. Is Christmas pagan? Yes. Raise your hand if you say yes.
Okay. No.
Is Christmas pagan? No. Raise your hand if you say no.
I mean...
So, Brad voted for no only. I voted for both yes and no.
Oh, because...
Randy and Matt voted for nothing.
That's my absentee ballot.
I would have voted for yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay, so Randy votes for both yes and no.
Yeah.
What does Matt vote for?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. So the answer is Christmas
and no.
pagan. Yes and no. Is Christmas a pagan holiday? No. Are there pagan traditions that we have adapted
That's why
into
I
our
said
celebration?
no.
Yes, it is.
Because I'm seeing it from my viewpoint.
Period.
There is no pagan in the way, all of us, there's no pagan in our
I think Jeremiah would disagree with you.
That's true. He might smack me in the face like Nicholas did.
So even
Yes and no.
Baba Noel, even Father Christmas.
Yeah.
It's based on a real saint who did really good things.
Yeah.
There's traditions throughout the Middle East and Asia, Central Asia, about this guy. And Europe, it went into Europe. Yeah. But he's become paganized.
Yeah, yes.
Okay? It's not syncretic because it's not religion, but he's been molded and evolved into all these pagan traditions.
Thanks, Coca-Cola.
Okay? And so the modern thing that we have is Coca-Cola, right? Based on some of the other ideas that were developed in the United States at the time and back through Europe and their European origins. Germanic, Roman, Celtic, ancient,
Norse.
That's Germanic.
Yeah.
So all those things kind of rolled together. It gave us some of our traditions that we have, including Yule, Sol Invictus, and Runner Solstice, and Saturnalia, all of those things together with the writings of our ancient Christian forefathers make Christmas as it is today. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Pass the eggnog.
Pass the eggnog. There's something else you missed. We're not going to say that part. Did you want to do this Christmas prayer?
So I've got two more things we're going to end with.
Oh, okay.
This is one of my favorite Christmas stories. I'm a fan of history.
Yes, I agree. This one is great.
So listen, Walter Cronkite does a lot better job than me. All right. So go listen to the Walter I can't even say his name. So go listen to the Walter Cronkite version of this if you want to hear it as it was presented first. Okay.
I think you should do it in his voice though. Try to imitate.
If I could, I would.
Cronkite.
The 1900s, the final century of the recent millennium, brought unprecedented possibilities and promise. The children of these 100 years would see more improvement in the human condition than ever before in the world's histories. Advances in medicine, science, and industry would all but eradicate disease, extend human life, open a dialogue among the peoples of the earth, and lift them into the vast reaches of space. But these hardly seemed possible as the Christmas of 1914 drew near. The nations of Europe were at war. Anxious to expand and defend their borders, they summoned their best and brightest to the battlefront. Young men answered by the millions. A 19-year-old German boy left his job in London to enlist in the German army. English boys working and studying in Hamburg and Paris returned to London, put on their uniforms, and went back to fire upon their former friends. Jeez. Secretary of War Lord Kirchner expanded the British Army overnight by allowing schoolmates to enlist together. The tragedy of these battalions was no more evident than at Somme, France. Hundreds of villages on both sides lost almost all their young men in this single battle. The little paybook that every British soldier carried included a last will and testament. Thousands of these booklets were collected from the bodies of young boys, mainly reading simply, "I leave everything to my mother." They were not old enough to be married and have kids.
It's sad.
With hardly a backward glance, the promise of youth was poured into the blind and futile aggression known as the Great War, or World War I. The new century brought a new kind of warfare. Field commanders quickly realized that digging in was the only way to survive the sweep of machine gun fire. The German army had marched across Belgium before being stopped at Flanders Field. Some 60 yards away, British, French, and Belgian troops languished in the trenches, infested with rats and lice. Pelted with freezing rain and shrapnel, as temperatures dropped, disease took hold. Snipers picked off any who raised their heads above the earthen wall. The war was but 4 months old, each side losing thousands a day, both the bullets and the silent common enemy, influenza. Between the opposing trenches was an area about the width of a football field, no man's land. Littered with barbed wire and frozen corpses, it was a sobering reminder of what the future might bring. Soldiers who survived later recalled their dead brothers being gathered up and stacked like cords of wood. By war's end, over 10 million would be lost. Not surprisingly, given the circumstances, most of these soldiers were religious, and many were Christian. On Sundays, communion was passed in trenches on both sides, often to the sound of church bells ringing in nearby villages. The occasional hymn was sung and youthful voices were heard across enemy lines. By December, the war slowed, and hopes for a quick resolution faded away. As the soldiers contemplated their desperate situation, nights grew long and hearts yearned for peace. December 23rd, a group of German soldiers quietly moved to the ruins of a bombed-out monastery. There, they held their Christmas service. Later on that night, a few Christmas trees, Tannenbaums, as they were called by the Germans, began to appear along the German fortifications, their tiny candles flickering in the night. Across the way, British soldiers took interest in those lights as they sang together the carols of their youth. They wassailed.
Yeah.
Word spread and heads peeked cautiously over sandbags at the now thousands of Tannenbaums glowing like Christmas stars. 2 British officers ventured over to the German line and, against orders, arranged a Christmas truce. But the negotiation was a mere formality by then. Up and down the trenches, men from both sides already had begun crossing a line to join the celebration. Lieutenant Sir Edward Hulse assaulted the enemy with music. In a letter to his mother, he wrote, "We are going to give the enemy every conceivable song, from carols to Tipperary." The Germans responded with a Christmas concert of their own. It was not long before the cold air rang with everything from good King Wenceslas to Old Lang Syne. For the next 2 days, these tidings continued to spring from the hearts of common men who shared the common bond of Christmas. Further down the line, a German violinist stood atop the parapet, framed against the skeletons of bare trees and shattered fortifications. Delicately perched in the desolate landscape, his cold fingers conveyed the poignant beauty of Handel's Largo. Whatever the spirit of Christmas had been before that hour, it was now, above all, the spirit of hope, of peace. A British war correspondent reported that later the soldiers heard a clear voice singing the beloved French carol, O Holy Night. The singer, Victor Grenier of the Paris Opera, the night watch must have lifted their eyes toward the heavens as they heard this plain call. Christmas Day dawned over the muddy fields, and both sides cautiously picked their way through the barbed wire. Side by side, they buried their dead. A German officer only known as Thomas gave Lieutenant Hulse a Christmas gift, a Victorian cross, a letter which had belonged to an English captain. Lieutenant Hulse responded by giving the German officer his silk scarf. One German received a photograph of himself in uniform and asked his former enemies to post it to his sister in Liverpool. Men who had shot at each other only days before gathered in a sacred service for their fallen brothers. Prayers were offered, and the 23rd Psalm was read. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. 19-year-old Arthur Pelham Byrne, who had hoped to study the ministry after the war ended, remembered. The Germans formed up on one side, the English on the other, the officers standing in front, every head bared. Yes, I think it is a sight one will never see again. As the Christmas of 1914 drew to a close, soldiers who had sung together, played together, and prayed together returned to their trenches. They must have felt reluctant to let the common ground between them become no man's land again. But as the darkness fell around them, a lone voice floated across the yards from the earth on which they had stood together. In the true spirit of Christmas, one voice, then another, joined in. Soon the whole world seemed to be singing, and for one brief moment the sound of peace was a carol everyone knew by heart. Silent night, holy night. All is calm, all is bright. Round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night. Shepherds quake at that sight. Glory stream from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ our Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. Silent night, holy night. Son of God, love's pure light. Radiant beams from thy holy face with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. And that's the way it was. One silent night over 100 years ago. And that's the way it can be as each of us embrace the message of that silent, holy night. And we'll close with a Christmas prayer by Robert Louis Stevenson.
Fantastic.
Loving Father, help us to remember the birth of Jesus, that we may share in the song of the angels, the goodness of the shepherds, and the worship of the wise men. Close the door of hate and open the door of love all over the world. Let kindness come with every gift and good desires with every greeting. Deliver us from the evil by the blessing which Christ brings, and teaches us to be merry with clear hearts. May the Christmas morning make us happy to be thy children, and the Christmas evening bring us to our beds with grateful thoughts, forgiving and forgiven for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Nathan. And fantastic way to end that podcast, this episode. Thank you guys for joining us, and hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas, and please use it as a time to remember the birth of our Savior.
That's what it's about.
And remember his death and resurrection as well. So thank you guys. Have a great Christmas and New Year, and we'll see you next time on Covenants and Kingdoms.
Happy Christmas, great New Year. We'll see you next year.
Great. Yeah.